And last night, Congress passed a sweeping year-end bill to provide long-delayed coronavirus relief and fund the government, capping off a months-long fight for more assistance. The Senate voted 92-6 on the $2.3 trillion package, which includes $1.4 trillion to fund the government and $900 billion in coronavirus relief, the first time Congress has passed additional aid since April. The bill, which passed the House earlier Monday, now goes to President Trump's desk, where the White House said he will sign it. Because Congress also passed a 7-day continuing resolution on Monday, Trump has until the end of Monday, December 28th, to sign the bill into law.
What was the wait?
Yeah.
What was the wait?
Yeah.
That's my one question is, what was the wait?
And believe it or not, there's some people that actually voted against this. I'm wondering, who are they? And
Well,
where's your heart at? Where's your head at? The numbers weren't that high, but still, to vote against this?
Mm-hmm. Demi's next story, continues talking about the $900 billion. So, there's definitely some stuff that we could talk about once, she talks about the relief bill and what it includes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And even, I'm glad that we're breaking down what it includes, because Congress, as we've been pointing out, Melissa, didn't even have enough time really to know that before they voted. AOC, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she actually talked about how members of Congress were only given 2 hours to read this more than 5,000-page bill before the vote. And not only that, she called it hostage taking. She also
you're right.
So she also pointed out that not only should members of Congress have been able to see this and have enough time to break it down, but the American public should as well, because all of us, the American public, should have had enough time to read through this, understand it, and not only that, but then reach out to your representative and tell them how you feel about it. And none of that happened.
Well, look, this is for the American people. Like you said, Brooke, the American people should have had a voice and at least had the opportunity, because 5,000 pages, you're not going to get through all that. But at least if we were given the opportunity to be able to say that we had eyes on it before, it took the next step, I feel like it would make a lot of people feel more comfortable.
Yeah, the reality of the situation is it's more than 5,000 pages. It's actually closer to 6,000. It's like 5,903 pages.
Yeah,
so it's a tomb,
Yeah.
So it's just like the stuff that I've been reading that's involved in the coronavirus, the relief package is insane, because it doesn't stay here in America.
All right, guys. Now, in the same vein, moving forward, the $900 billion coronavirus relief bill that includes $600 stimulus checks and $300 in enhanced unemployment benefits is notably missing the pause on mandatory student loans and student loan interest that has become a cornerstone of the coronavirus relief policy. Previous reports indicated that the stimulus package would extend the pause, suggesting that the policy was eliminated during negotiations. Now, Joe Biden may have to choose executive action to extend the payment pause and interest waiver soon after he takes office. Joe, can you zoom in? Well, you don't have to actually zoom in, but Joe, if you're listening, Joe Biden, we need this, okay? Yeah. First of all, we already talked about $600 stimulus check is nowhere near enough, but I really did get excited when I heard about student loans. Like, I went to 2 colleges, so my student loans are through the roof. So honestly, any relief with student loans would be helpful.
The crazy part about this whole thing is how much of this bill was designated as foreign aid. I mean, $500 million of it is going straight to Israel for military purchases. Okay, we're sending foreign aid to countries such as Venezuela, Central America, Ukraine, amongst others. Also included in this are 2 new museums on the National Mall, focusing on the history of Latinos and women. I'm just wondering, when we have lines of people who cannot put food on the table to feed their families, 330 million Americans, and we're sending foreign aid to all of these other countries. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
We try to figure it out. And you think about some of the things we as black people have to go to. Let's talk about this. 86% of black students that borrow from federal loans to attend 4-year colleges, where it's only 59% white students normally do that. An average black graduate has $7,400 per student loan debt by the end of the year. But by the time it passes, if you go through 4 years or more, it could be over $50,000. And due to the job market for us, we can't always pay that off or pay that down. So 20 or 30 years later, we're still paying on a student loan.
And you know what? I'm glad that you brought it back to student loans, because it's a larger conversation here. Because here's the thing. we're talking about, relief in the way of pauses.
Right.
But this also opens the door for a really serious opportunity for Joe Biden to come in and use executive order to cancel some of this debt. Nobody worries about when it's due if you don't have it anymore.
That's true.
You guys, I've made peace with the fact that there is a chance I might not get my student loans down to zero. So again, if you're listening, Joe, we need this.
Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says Americans could see their $600 COVID relief money in their bank accounts in a matter of days. He told this to CNBC host Jim Cramer, saying the good news is this is a very, very fast way of getting the money into the economy. Let me emphasize, people are going to see this money at the beginning of next week. He added, so it's very fast. It's money that gets recirculated in the economy. People go out and spend this money, and that helps small business, and that helps getting more people back to work. Okay. People who make up to $75,000 will receive $600 in direct payments with checks for their children, too. And what this means is a family of four could end up with $2,400. The payments decrease for people who made more than $75,000 during 2019. And, unfortunately, some people who are in serious need are going to slip through the cracks when it comes to even this $600 of immediate relief. Because think about this scenario. If you made too much money in 2019, but then you lost your job this year, you don't get the payment. You actually will then have to wait for a tax rebate when you file your taxes this upcoming spring.
It's always amazing to me when
Isn't that
politicians.
horrible?
It's always amazing to me when politicians like Steve Mnuchin discuss, a $600 relief payment sent out, and we're supposed to get excited about it, when he himself is worth like $300 million.
Yeah, it's easy to look down from the top of the hill and say, oh, it's going to be all right. Yeah, because for you, it's all right. But for our soulmates that may get this check, it's going to be gone within days because they got bills. We're in the holiday season. Like, it's a lot going on. And then I got this auntie where she would take this money instead of pay her bills. She wanted to buy everybody something for Christmas because that's where her heart is,
She
right?
wants to just do. People are looking for anything happy. And taking it back to what Mnuchin said here, I'm sorry. What he said here, the idea that this is going to stimulate the economy, we talked about that yesterday, and we talked about the importance of the words that come out of your mouth. We were talking about what Nancy Pelosi said, calling it significant. This man, Steve Mnuchin, is saying that it's going to stimulate the economy. How can it stimulate the economy when it gets eaten up in overdraft fees? People who haven't worked.
Well, I know one thing, although we can slam the amount of money that we're going to get for this, you have to admit there are some people, though, that $600 is a lot of money. So I'm happy that we have direct deposit and that, next week is not a bad idea for the money to start rolling in. So, I mean, even if it's just $600, if it comes next week, it'll pay for something.
You guys want to know like a really interesting fact about Steve Mnuchin?
What's that?
Like, it's just random. Mike Pence presided over his last marriage ceremony.
Interesting. Okay.
Sorry,
Melissa
just
with the facts.
Random facts.
Bring in the facts.
I know, Melissa with the facts.
He's also a big executive producer of massive movies in Hollywood, like the Lego Movie, Mad Max. Yeah.
Well, why don't he cut some checks so he can stimulate the
that part? He can stimulate the economy.
I know.
Well, the last time PPP loans were passed out, businesses at properties owned by the Trump organization and President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner's family, reportedly received more than 24 Paycheck Protection Program loans worth more than $3.65 million. Now, analysts by NBC News of Small Business Administration data released Tuesday night found that millions of dollars were given to the businesses located at Trump Organization and Kushner Company's properties that pay rent to the two companies. NBC reported that 15 of those properties self-reported that after receiving the PPP loans, they kept only one employee, did not keep any employees, or did not report how many workers were retained. When I think about Trump and wanting to pardon some people in his family, get them pardoned and all that, like, is this maybe one of the reasons why? Because I feel like they've been beating the system for years. And I really feel like what's going on here with these loans, it doesn't add up to how they're doing it. And I think about other companies that do this, right? And they're doing it legit, but they're going to walk away with a lot of extra money.
This reminds me so much. I'm passing it to you, Brooke. I was actually going to give you, this reminds me a lot of what Brooke says when we were talking about the Pfizer CEO story. And so I said, well, why can't, and at first when Brooke said it, I was kind of like, well, but she actually makes a great point.
We're talking about him not getting the vaccine.
Yes, we were talking about him not, thank you. We were talking about, because I'm acting like everyone else, we were talking about the Pfizer CEO not being able to cut the line to get his own company's vaccine. And Brooke said, this reminds me of white men using their privilege and cutting the line. And this is exactly what you were saying last week, Brooke, about having white men being able to skip the line. I was reading a story about a business owner who had $12,000 a week in expenses, and she only got $5,000. But then you have, you know, $3.6 million given out to someone that's probably doesn't even need it.
Right. And, you know, activists and a spokesman actually for Accountable.us said the Trump administration did everything in its power to hide the recipients of PPP loans. And so one has to wonder why. And the fact that we only have this information because more than 10 news organizations sued to get it. They had to be sued to tell us where taxpayer money went.
Yeah.
This is wild.
Yeah.
And then we get the answer, and it's like, well, I could see why you'd want to hide it.
Exactly.
And some of these loans can be forgiven if taking the right steps. So imagine that. Imagine you get all that money and go through the right paperwork and right procedures and then get all that forgiven. Don't have to pay it back.
Right.
I agree. All right. Our YouTube soulmates once again checking in, and you guys have a lot to say today, and I love it. So Adrian Smith says the American public doesn't care about reading the bill. That's when we were talking about having the opportunity to read it in advance. Patrick Dick says, you think this is a good idea when you study Biden's economic tax plan, and it's going to destroy the small businesses and the worker and give control back to the corporation. That's a good one. Also, Kim Johnson said, Joe, look right in the camera. That was the real one right there. You guys keep on commenting. You guys have a lot to say. We're checking in. I'm reading your comments. We're live, so I will be shouting you guys out as the show goes on. Now,